At the very heart of how we live together, there's this constant tug of war, right? It's a balancing act between two huge ideals, our personal freedom and our shared idea of what's fair. Today, we're going to dig into the rules of that game.
It seems like such a simple question, doesn't it? But man, does it open up a can of worms. If every single one of us just chased our own desires with zero limits, society would pretty much fall apart. So we need rules. But what kind of rules? And who gets to decide them? That's the puzzle we're putting together today. All right, let's kick things off with the big one, freedom. It's this incredibly powerful, universal dream, The deep down desire to be in the driver's seat of our own lives and just be ourselves without anything holding us back. And look, freedom isn't just some nice idea in a book. It's something people make unbelievable sacrifices for. I mean, think about Nelson Mandela, spending 27 years in prison. That wasn't just about his own liberty. It was for a huge, long struggle against unjust rules for an entire nation. And then you have someone like Aung San Suu Kyi, who pushes this idea even further. She says, hey, real freedom isn't just about not being in chains, it's what's going on inside you. It's being free from fear. Fear of the government, fear of what people will think, fear of just speaking your mind. If you don't have that, you can't really live a dignified life. So let's wrap this up. Freedom is about way more than just being left alone. It's really about getting rid of those external barriers so that we can all make our own choices. And this is key, so we can actually grow into our full potential. Okay, but here's where it gets complicated. Because total, absolute freedom for everyone, that creates its own set of problems. As much as we love freedom, we also care a whole lot about fairness and equality. And this is where the real tension starts to build. This really is one of the biggest head-scratchers of our time. We all say, yeah, everyone has equal worth. It's written into laws and constitutions all over the planet. And yet, you just have to look around to see massive inequality everywhere, from slums right next to fancy apartments to these incredible gaps in income. And the numbers, well, they make this paradox impossible to ignore. The richest 10% of people on the planet control more than half of all the world's income. That's not just a gap, that's a canyon. And it really makes you question our whole idea of fairness. So to get a handle on this, it helps to split inequality into two different types. First, you have what we could call natural inequalities. We're all born with different talents and skills. But then you have social inequalities, and these are the ones we build. They're the unfair systems that treat people differently just because of their background. And those are the ones we have to fix. Which, you guessed it, brings us right back to where we started. If we want to protect fairness and stop people from getting hurt, we actually have to put some limits, some constraints on that dream of total freedom. So when is it okay to limit someone's freedom? Well, the philosopher John Stuart Mill came up with a really powerful rule of thumb. He basically said that the only good reason to interfere with what someone is doing is to stop them from harming somebody else. That's it. This is famously known as the harm principle, and it's a huge deal in modern thinking. It gives us a pretty clear, logical reason for having laws and rules in the first place. Put simply, your freedom to swing your fist ends right where my nose begins. Mill even broke it down for us into two kinds of actions. Self-regarding actions are things that only affect you. The government, society, they should have nothing to say about it. But other regarding actions are the ones that affect other people. And if those actions cause serious harm, that's when society has a right to step in with its rules. Okay, so we've got this great principle from philosophy. But how on earth do you take a big idea like that and apply it to a whole country with millions of people? How do you turn that into a real system that actually works? Well, for most democracies, the answer comes in two parts. First, you need a constitution. Think of it as the ultimate rulebook for the whole country. And second, you have elections, which is how we choose the people who are going to apply and update those rules for all of us. But even how we choose our leaders involves a trade-off. You've got the first-past-the-post system, winner takes all in a district, which usually leads to more stable governments. On the other hand, proportional representation gives seats based on the total vote share, which is great for making sure smaller parties get a voice. It's the classic dilemma. Do you want stability or do you want representation? And to see how this plays out in the real world, just look at India. After independence, they went with a first-past-the-post system for some very practical reasons. For one, it was simple enough for a brand new voting public to understand. It also created a direct line between a politician and their local community, and it was seen as the best bet for creating stable governments. But here's something that's absolutely critical to remember. These rules, they're not meant to be set in stone. In fact, the best rulebooks are the ones that are designed to change.
A truly great constitution isn't some dusty old document locked in a vault. No, it's a living document. It has to be flexible, able to adapt to new problems, and reflect the values of the people it governs as they change over time.
You can really see this in action with India's constitution. It's been amended over 100 times since 1950. Different decades brought different challenges and different political moods, leading to different kinds of changes. And that constant tweaking isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of a healthy, functioning democracy. But that flexibility does have its limits. There are some guardrails. To make sure no single government could come in and change the fundamental identity of the nation, the Indian judiciary created something called the Basic Structure Doctrine. It basically says, sure, you can change the Constitution, but you can't tear down its core pillars, things like democracy, individual rights, or the rule of law. So, we've talked about freedom, fairness, rules, and how they change. But what does all this high-level political stuff actually have to do with your life right now? Well, here's why it matters to you. This whole balancing act between freedom and fairness is happening everywhere, all the time. Every time you argue about a fair rule at work, or debate a new policy in your town, or even discuss what should be allowed online, you are taking part in this exact same negotiation. This isn't just for philosophers and politicians, it's our game too. And that brings us to one last thought. Since we know that shaping these rules is a never-ending process, the real question isn't if they'll change, but how. So I'll leave you with this. What's one rule, big or small, in your world that you think needs to change next? Thanks for watching.